Welcome to The Confidence Curve with Ashley and Rick Bowers, where personal and professional journeys define the art of scaling with confidence. Whether you're a business leader navigating change or someone seeking personal growth, this podcast offers insights and actionable advice to help you thrive. Now let's dive into today's conversation with our incredible guest.
Welcome to the Confidence Curve with Apex GTS Advisors. My name is Ashley Bowers and my co-host Rick Bowers. We are here today with Ira. He is the CFO of Go Car Wash, and we are so excited to have you with us today on the podcast. We can't wait to get to know a little bit more about you and specifically the amazing culture that you're building and scaling inside that business. But why don't you kick us off? Give us a little bit of your background and what you're doing these days with Go Car Wash.
Yeah, sure. Thank you for having me. It's great to be here. I'm on my 30th year in accounting and finance and mostly work for high growth companies. I like to tell people I started my career in banking, but I lost interest. But I did start in banking and then quickly moved to public companies. I worked for Republic Services and United Rentals. After a little bit of time, moved sort of in the private company and then with Isogenics and moved over to private equity where I really found a home. With American Vision Partners, and currently I'm with Go Car Wash. American Vision Partners was a roll-up, so a little bit of taste of integration, et cetera. And the last 6 years is Go Car Wash, where it was a startup in 2019.
Awesome.
So what's your favorite from the different things? Do you like from the startup and the growth that you've done, or were one of the other ones kind of fit better?
Yeah, I think from a startup perspective, it's great because you get to do everything from the beginning and it's yours. Yeah. And so there's a little bit of benefit there. I do like that you can build it the right way as opposed to having to re-engineer things. Yeah. It's sometimes even harder. But you do take a lot for granted, in a startup. There's no infrastructure. The computers go down and you don't have a computer guy. You are the computer guy. And so there's a lot of those challenges, but I think sometimes when you don't have to rebuild and you can just set it from the beginning, you could set the strategy. For us at Go, it was huge to be able to set the culture, as you mentioned, and from the beginning and really set the tone for how you want the company to run. Whereas if it's already sort of an established company, it takes a little bit of different management to be able to do those things.
From startup to over 150 locations in a pretty quick time frame, what are some of those lessons that you learned that you might want to share with some other entrepreneurs out there that are doing the whole startup and scale phase of their business?
You do take a lot for granted. That's the first thing. But I think the biggest thing with a startup, and when you want to be able to scale big sizes, you have to have standard processes, especially multi-site. So you have to have the same processes. You have to You send them down to train up everybody the same way, and then you just manage the variation. So that's the first thing. The second thing is you really have to build an infrastructure that is set up for bigger than what you think you need, and to do it earlier. It doesn't mean it's going to be more money. It's just the way you set things up to be able to be at scale. And so being able to do that from the beginning was super helpful. We were able to we're not at 500 car washes, but that was sort of the thing in our mind was build it for 500. And that helps you in a lot of different areas. So those were some of the biggest things. And then, the communication cadence is so important, both on operations and finance and sales, because when you are smaller, the need doesn't feel, important at that point. If you have 10 sites, everybody there. You've talked to them all the time. The key is to set those cadences up, whether it's Teams meetings on a regular basis, Slack to be able to communicate. Because then as you quickly add sites, you're able to scale and not lose anything. But it's setting up that cadence when maybe you don't feel like it's necessary because you can talk to everyone.
Do you think it's helped you put a focus on that because you're here in Arizona and you guys don't actually have sites in Arizona, right? And so you've kind of had to deal with that gap right from the beginning, whereas sometimes people start a new business, it's in one place, and then they go to other locations. And now it's like, wait, how do we duplicate the culture in other states and other cities?
100% agree.
Okay.
Yes. And the fact that, we started in Kansas City with sites and we knew this would be a field-facing business, that we knew we had criteria for what markets we want. And this goes with any business that you might be acquiring. You'll have criteria that fit your acquisition pipeline, but you don't know always where they'll be. And so for us, it was really important to set those up because we had Kansas City locations, then we had Vegas locations, Texas locations. And so right from the beginning, it was a field-facing remote business. And so that definitely helped facilitate that cadence that we set up and make sure that, once we added other sites, it just became part of our regular operations.
Sure.
It's just what we did.
Sure.
Sometimes in certain companies that we've talked to or worked with, you ask about mission and vision and they'll be able to rattle it off right off the top of their head. Some companies, it's like, yeah, we have it. We don't really focus on it too much. When I mentioned that in our conversation earlier this week, you're like, yeah, this is something that we really focus on. So in the spirit of transparent communication in all these locations and would you say 1,900 employees?
1,900
How do you make sure everybody is bought in and a part of the mission and vision of Go Car Wash?
Yeah, so, I get pretty excited about it, as I mentioned, with our shoes. So, we have Go Car Wash customized shoes for award winners and socks and things. And we get pretty excited about our mission, vision, values. And it's one thing to just say it, and then there's another thing to do it. So some of the things that we've done is it starts with hiring. So you have to you don't have to hire like people, but you have to hire people that fit your culture.
Sure.
And that will help and integrate other businesses into your organization. But you have to hire people that fit your culture. Things we do to keep the culture is we have team-wide calls, like a town hall type call, where we try to be transparent with where we're looking, things we're interested in, things we're building, resources we're adding. We also want them to understand where else in the country we're at. One of the things we have, an employee base of 1,900, is that they could work anywhere in the country almost. Okay. We have 10 different states we're in, so there's a lot of opportunity. So we share this on calls like the Go Getter call, the Go Big call, and we try to share as much. Now, transparency is really huge because it builds trust and it builds confidence in the direction that you're going. So we want these people to know what we're thinking. Obviously, there's a few things we can't share, but for the most part, we want them to know what we know and where we're going, and we want to get their thoughts and feedback on it. So it's been a big thing for us, and where the culture has really been important is we had 28 transactions for 100 sites, and as you bring on new teammates, the culture is so important. Some of the teammates don't fit the culture and they just self-select themselves out. But the majority of the teammates are looking for something bigger than just a 3 car wash chain in our example. And so they're looking for a culture, and then they fit right in, and it makes the integration and much easier for us. And so that's where it really pays off.
How have you really looked at scaling the financial systems, obviously having the financial background, where they're supportive of the growth and everything that you're trying to achieve, and at the same time don't kind of push and break the whole operation? I mean, that type of acquisitive growth can obviously put strains on an operational model as well as a financial model. And so what have been some of your tips and tricks, and maybe some things that didn't go so well as you were integrating in the sites and scaling the financial systems at the same time?
Yeah, I think from a financial perspective, in our group in particular, and it could be in any businesses, you want to hire people with the skill and the will, and you want to hire people with talent. Obviously, everybody's going to say that, but a lot of times when you start, you think you don't need that kind of talent at that time. And I take a different approach. It's incrementally a little bit more maybe, but the rewards are much bigger, and that person will scale with you. And so number one is get the best talent. Number two, culture that talent. And so these people are learning what you know, and they're evolving and developing. And with a system perspective, just like I mentioned with the field standards, you build standards within your accounting organization. So standard checklists, standard procedures. And as you get systems integrated, you make sure that your accounting system talks to your other systems. That's so huge. And then you'll add some automation, and that'll free up a lot of time for you actually to be business partners. because you're freeing up, administrative, tasks, and you can be more of a business partner. So we tried to put in some automation. We have systems that integrate, and then we train up people to be able to do everything. And I think that's allowed us to have people who can do multiple things, and that's allowed us to be able to continue to keep up with the growth.
Great. So, as mentioned before, 28 acquisitions. What are some of the myths or misconceptions that people have about kind of that process?
Well, first thing they think is this acquisition does business like us, and so the integration will be a little more seamless. That's not true.
Yeah.
Everybody's business is slightly different, and even if they do it very similar, which could be great for the culture and the fit, the integration is not necessarily easier unless you have the cadence of the communication and the culture set up and you're well established in terms of those things. Yeah. The other thing people think is when they acquire someone smaller, that they're going to save a ton of money in the cost structure. And that's actually not always the case either. Often you will provide more than maybe what the smaller company was. For example, benefits for employees. You might have that. You might insure for more because you're bigger. You might have richer recognition plans. So the cost doesn't necessarily go down, but there are areas where now you're bulk purchasing, and so you could save some money there. And then where the real bang for the buck is on the top line. Mm-hmm. You're able to put in some investments that can then draw, higher returns on the top line, which then trickle through. So I think one of the misconceptions is, we can do it cheaper, and that's not always the case.
Yeah.
I did a handful of acquisitions during my years in real estate, and I almost felt like the ones that had the most synergy from culture and just thought process and everything were actually the hardest integrations, because every time you turn, you're like, oh, well, that's like a really good idea, right? And so then you're second guessing yourself constantly. Well, wait, should we bring them into how we do it, or maybe should we do it the way they do it? And I feel like the best successes when we had a little bit of mix of both. We learned from each other and we made some improvements, and it seemed like the teams came together a little bit more in those instances as well, just because they didn't feel like it was only one-sided, right?
I think we've evolved throughout, right? We've taken best practices from all the different acquisitions. We think we had a good basis on how to run car washes or ophthalmology, whatever it was, but getting a lot of smart people in a room always yields a good result. Yeah. And so we did take on a lot of different systems, different processes, and integrated into our system. So no, they're huge. I mean, as we acquired these businesses, they are successful for a reason. Mm-hmm. And so we can learn from them as well. So yeah, no, we definitely took on a lot and, made us better as a company.
It seems like you've worked with some pretty amazing leadership teams throughout your career. Sometimes I know that financial executives can find themselves kind of put into a box a little bit and not always brought up to the strategic table for all the different decisions. What do you think the most underrated skill of a CFO is today? What's kind of overlooked?
Yeah, I think business partnering is a huge skill that a lot of CFOs may, if they do have it, they're very successful. If they don't, then maybe not as successful. And for me in my career, I started at Republic Services in terms of the biggest partnerships that I had was where I was a controller for maybe 5 locations, and I had general managers at those locations. And so every day you're working with these folks, you're building relationships, you understand what it takes to get what you need done, but also get what, help them get what they need done. And I think, we sat in a room once, it was, the general manager and we were with the districts, and the district said, Ira, we have never gotten an expense report from you up here. Who's signing off on your expense report? And I said, well, John's my general manager. He's my business partner. He's signing them. So they said, John, we've never gotten an expense report from you. He said, well, Ira's my controller. He's my business partner. He's signing them. And they said, no more. But, that's the kind of business partnering that you have. And lucky for me that's sort of the structure that they had. And so that was where I was able to learn guys like James Culver and Mark Klatt back in the Republic days really were great role models for me on how they were able to acclimate to whether it's sales or ops or any department. So I was able to just learn from them a little bit and then, learn the skill. A great example would be, and I know a lot of people probably, especially in accounting and finance, was the Sarbanes-Oxley timeframe, which was very hard for accountants, but equally as hard for ops because it was an internal control thing, and they weren't used to that.
Nope.
And while we're used to it, we weren't quite at that level. And so and then that was when I was at Republic Services. And so embracing that and not running from it, and then relying on those relationships with the operations made us really successful to be able to then implement these internal controls that were, big public company like that has to pass.
Yeah.
And so, that's just one example, but the whole business partnering is really an underappreciated skill that I think has been huge for me in my career.
Is there something in that you've been able to pass along to your team? Can they kind of learn and grow from that specific skill that you've been talking about?
Yeah, for sure. So one thing that I'm a firm believer in is, and obviously it's about people, but as we develop people, we want them to be, I always say, I want you to be controller ready. Okay. So my accountants have to be controller ready, which means that they're not only booking entries, they're doing P&L reviews themselves. So they're financial analysts. And then one step further, they're the ones conducting P&L reviews with field management and going through those P&Ls as a business, sort of pushing them in the direction of a business partner. Sure. And so they're conducting those calls and building those relationships with operations. And so that's sort of how we do it. I think if you don't want to be a controller, that's totally fine. But I think it should be your choice and not that you lack the skill or experience. And so we're trying to get everybody to be controller ready. Yeah. And then also I think typically people will stay a lot longer with you because they're developing. They're getting these other skills. We try to rotate tasks to enrich people on different things. Somebody might be sick of it. The other person's excited to do it. And so we try to do a little bit of that. And I think that creates some tenure with your team. Yeah. In a good way. Yeah. And so I think in becoming controller ready, business partnering with ops are some of the things we do to try to keep that, within our little mini culture in accounting and finance.
Yeah. Let's brag on you a little bit. So you were recently named CFO of the Year. Obviously that comes with a lot of support and nomination from your teams and your leaders and your community, the people who work with you and around you. So what does that mean to you, and how did your team help make that possible?
Yeah, it was very humbling because you look around the room and there's a ton of really talented, hardworking people.
It's a good crowd.
It's a good crowd to be in for sure. And so it was really humbling. This is a team award, and I was telling my team, and we all say we won, and it's great because we won. Yeah. It wasn't me, we won. You have 8 players performing. It's a team award, right? If they're not developing and being able to do these things, we can't provide other things outside of accounting and finance. So that was really great that it truly felt like it was a team award, which was great. And then what was great about it is I have a daughter in law school now and a son just finishing second year at ASU. And it was great for them to see that the sacrifice that I've made over the years is being recognized. Mm-hmm. And it's just great for them in their development. And as they start to think about how hard they want to work or things they want to accomplish, to be able to see that. Yeah. And so that was great. And then lastly, just as, from a CFO and accounting mindset, it was great to have the recognition to see that there's a lot of great work being done by controllers, staff accountants, and CFOs that largely will get unrecognized. And this was a night that we could recognize all that hard work. And even the people that didn't win, they were recognized for what they've accomplished and the hard work they've done. And their teams know that they're sitting there because of the contributions they've made. So it was really great for just the sort of the accounting and finance field in general. So that was really cool.
Awesome.
Yeah, it's kind of exciting. It gives some encouragement to the team. Like there are things out there that you can strive for, and it's kind of what are those things you want to be known for, and kind of how do you build a strategy, set goals to kind of get to that point and really bring it in as a piece of your culture as well.
Yeah, it's just a great reinforcement to, the team concept of, if some of our values are caring, continuous improvement, fun. And so, the fact that we care about each other and we're supporting each other, that these kind of things could be recognized. So it just reinforces what we're trying to do. It was a great night, and, back to work the next day.
Yeah, never ends, right? That's why we do it. So, okay, you've mentioned the shoes a little bit, but tell us a little bit more about the culture and the Go Getter Awards, and you've mentioned Go Shine. What's all that about?
Yeah, so our vision is to be the most admired car wash company, and we say while enriching the lives of our teammates and customers. And we say teammates first because we feel like if we enrich our teammates, they'll in turn enrich our customers. And so some of the things we try to do is to recognize some of the people in the field for the day in and day out of work they're doing. We have some of the hardest working people in the industry. And so to be able to recognize them on a call with the entire company, to be able to say, hey, you're nominated for a Go Getter Award, and then you have a chance to win some sneakers that are, customized for Go Car Wash. These are the kinds of things that just reinforce the culture that we have. And the Go Shine, we like to say it's your time to go shine. And it's really to shine for the customer, right? Yeah. This is your time. We enriched you to now do this for your customers, because these are the folks that are seeing people every day and washing cars every single day. And so we want them to carry that sort of customer service torch. And so let them go down and enrich the customers. So it's been great. We have a lot of different swag, different things we're trying to incorporate. We had a trade show just recently where we brought some of the winners and able to celebrate them sort of at a trade show, which was great. Some of them never been, and for them to be recognized. And we're going to continue to do that because I think, if you want to become the most admired company, regardless, you have to enrich the teammates. And so we're going to continue to do that.
Okay.
So one of the things that we talked about too is maybe lessons learned or a maturity in your career kind of a thing, but not catering to the C-suite, say that easy, was something that you learned, and it really ties back to a culture piece, I think, as well, where the people that are doing the work are as important or more important than making sure the C-suite is happy.
Yeah, no, it's so hard when you're a young manager learning how to manage people. Where should your emphasis be on? Whether it should be, on upper management or people who report to you, and how do you balance it, and how do you navigate? And there's no real lesson, the lessons to be learned is the way to do it. And so I think early in my career, I might have pandered to the C-suite a little bit too much, or upper management. So don't pander to the C-suite. No. But I think it goes a little bit past that. It's also the perception more so than the reality, but I think it's just equally as important. And so a couple things that I learned was you can create a culture within your organization that's consistent with the bigger organization. And so no matter what the noise is maybe on the peripheral, but you also have your own culture within accounting and finance. And I think that really puts the focus back on your team and people who report to you. And so it takes a little while. And I think early in my career, I might have been too focused on pleasing upper management and not quite managing the team the way I should, but growing pains. And, it's a great lesson to be learned, because I think it takes on a lot of different facets besides just listening to your team. It's so big, much bigger than that. And once you can sort of understand that and balance those priorities, you're so much better at your job, and it's so much more enjoyable. Really is. Yeah.
I had a meeting earlier today, and it was with one of my high potential coaching clients. So helping them kind of understand the people skills and the things that they need to kind of move into that next level up. And one of the things we talked about today was grit or grittiness. And I said to him, I said, what does that mean to you? And he's like, well, making sure I do the things that need to be done and show people that I can do these things versus having to tell somebody. And I said, so the people that do things and when the boss is around, and then when the boss isn't around, they're standing in the corner. He's like, yeah, not that. And so it's like helping the younger people understand that it's like, it's important to do the things when nobody's watching. And so I think that's just something that level of team needs to understand, is that you never know who's kind of seeing it from whatever angle, but that's kind of that mentality that you just build into.
Yeah, one of our values is integrity, right? Mm-hmm. And it goes beyond just, right from wrong. It's are you doing the right things when no one's looking? Yep. And a lot of times no one's looking, right? Mm-hmm. Especially if you have some trust built up amongst your supervisors. And so we always say that, the results that we have at the end of the month are not due to anything we did at the end of the month. Yeah. This is doing something every single day, whether it's accounting, recons, accounts payable, making sure things are coded right, or if it's on the operations side, making sure the equipment's running, making sure you're providing the best customer service, sales, making sure that you give the right pitch because you think that package is the best package for those folks. And so you're doing this every day. Often nobody's looking, but if you can do the right things when no one's looking, you're going to do the right things when they are. So
absolutely
good habits.
So you've mentioned transparency a few times today. Obviously a big believer in that and the value that it brings into the organization. How do you practice and demonstrate that transparency on a regular basis? Because there takes a little bit of vulnerability, right, in order to do that. Lots of trust to be completely transparent. But what does that look like? How does that show up for you in your day-to-day interactions with your team?
Yeah, I think first you got to be authentic, right? And I think that resonates with people. What we do and what I think is important is we have a weekly call, whether it be at Go Car Wash or American Vision Partners, wherever I've been. And now it's Teams, and you're on camera. But what we do is we go through board decks. Now if I have to take a few out because I can't share, I'll do it. But for the most part, I'll take them through the board deck, or I'll take them through a presentation I did, or I'll take them through the management package that month, because their piece is a part of it, right? But they may not, other than see, because they've contributed to it, they may not see some of the schedules. So we usually take, either 1 week a month or sometimes 2, depending on work, is to share that with them. So they'll always see the board deck, and they'll often see something different, every other week, for them to see what's going on and whatever I can share. I think it's important for them, like mentioned, to build confidence and trust in what we're doing, and for them to see this is what we're telling other people, or this is what other people are seeing of your product. And so that's a lot what we do, and I think the team enjoys it. We've been fortunate to have really, I always say, and skill and will are like the most important thing in a teammate. And we've had some really good promotions within the organization. And for example, there's one that was accounts payable specialist, finishing his degree, and recently promoted to staff accountant. And I said to him, wasn't that great that I showed you how the cash flow statement worked when you were in accounts payable? Because my accounts payable team are more than people just paying bills. These are business people. Yeah. These people are running projects. They're running programs like card programs, and they're doing a lot more to develop themselves. And my accountants, as we mentioned earlier, are financial analysts and business partners. So we try to share that kind of thing. So, joked a little bit about, wasn't it good that you saw that? Because you never know when you might utilize something.
There's a lot of truth in that, though. I mean, part of what we do through Apex is I facilitate peer advisory groups. And so CFO, CEO, HR groups, key executives, And what we started all hearing amongst, there's 14 groups of the facilitators through Arizona Growth Advisors, and everyone was saying there's this gap, right, on there for mid-level management. They just don't have people that are ready to promote. Culture is there, the will is there, but the skill development, they've grown up in the organization. And one of the biggest things was the finance basics and understanding, and P&L versus a balance sheet versus a cash flow statement. And we actually kicked off next level leadership. And this month we're doing finance basics for managers from the Harvard Business Review, and taking them through and having them do a balance sheet on their personal life, and do a cash flow statement on your personal life. And so
I hate
the numbers,
to see that on mine, but
but like the numbers mean something.
yeah,
right.
they could really,
Sometimes depending on the size of the organization, there's so many zeros that it's hard for people to really connect with it emotionally. So those numbers in your own bank account definitely have a connection regardless of what they are. And so, but it's just that development is so critical for people. And, everyone's always worried, well, if we develop people and they leave, what happens? It's like, well, if you don't and they stay, what happens there too? So I know I didn't get that quote exactly right, but we all know the quote. So,
yeah.
So
what happens if they don't leave, right? If they don't develop and they don't leave.
and they
right?
stay. Yeah. What do
they
we
stay,
do then? So a question I always like to ask is, what advice would you give your younger self?
I think patience is super important. Early in my career, I wasn't sure what way I was going to go. I started in banking, and I wasn't sure if I'd stay in banking or sort of move into financial analysis and controllership. But what I told people, I was just at WP Carey speaking, and I told the students there, look, don't latch on to something so early. Meaning, in my career, I went back and forth between financial analyst and controllership, depending on the need of the company that I worked for. And I think that flexibility really helped me. So that's the advice that I give to people now. For myself, really was patience. Just, sometimes I don't have the most patient outlook, but, just really be patient, continue to learn, and it will work out if you got the will and the skill.
Yeah, absolutely.
So we had talked a little bit about your staff accountants and kind of why it's important to give them more training than just doing the basic accounting. So what have been some of the successes of your accountants as they move into different roles in the organization?
Yeah, so I mean, you develop folks, and hopefully you're able to evolve their careers within your organization. We've had several people that were in accounts payable. I mentioned one, and we've had a promotion to all the way up to senior now. And so we've been able to progress careers. Assistant controller was a staff accountant at one point. We have had people leave the organization. For example, we had our VP of Finance corporate controller leave to be a CFO.
Yeah.
And so that was a celebration. I mean, that she was ready. She put in the time. She was amazing. And that was the right thing. And so when we talked about it, you want people to feel free to talk to you about opportunities. And I thought that was a great opportunity for her. Other people have left to become assistant controllers, other roles. It's like in the NFL where they show these coaching trees where the Bill Walshes of the world had all these head coaches all over, or Belichick, or some of these head coaching. They talk about the coaching tree. And so for me, I don't want to lose people. Hopefully I can keep their careers going. But at the end of the day, we need to keep evolving people. I would want that. Yeah. Just the same that they would want that. And so I'm as proud to know, hey, there's this many controllers that are, floating around the accounting and finance profession, that I actually got a chance to be a part of their career. Maybe good, maybe bad. Maybe they learn not to do things certain ways. But
Lessons are lessons.
the coaching tree. So I think it's great. And hopefully with changing up, responsibilities and tasks, that you keep enriching people to keep learning. And I say, don't switch jobs if you're still learning. Be patient. Make sure you're ready. You got all the tools in your toolkit before you're ready for the next jump. But at some point, that's the logical next step. And we should be celebrating
Yeah.
something like that versus, being disappointed. And you should have relationships with people once they leave the organization. And that's just my outlook.
Yeah, I think that's why communication and transparency and the culture is so important, because then these things are being discussed as opposed to all of a sudden it's a shock. And are you going to get a full 2 weeks? And a person in those kind of roles, I mean, sometimes you need a month. You need
You guys
longer
probably
than
see
that.
this in your
And so
business
it's like,
all the time.
Yeah.
It shouldn't be a shock if you have the culture in place and you have the communication channels in
Yep.
place and people trust each other, then it shouldn't be a shock in those
And
situations.
they come tell you that they have an opportunity that they fought off for 6 to 8 months and finally listen to it, and they think it's a great opportunity. You probably should be thinking,
Yeah.
I'm surprised it's lasted this long.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Right?
One of my proudest leadership moments, I had my controller come to me, and he sat down and he's like, I hate accounting. I'm like, what? And he's like, I hate accounting. I don't want to do it anymore. I'm like, are you resigning? And he goes, well, I hope not. And I just looked at him. In that moment, you just know you must have an immense amount of trust between the two of you, because you have and that was the top level position in the organization for finance at the time. And so you must have some trust there, right? And I'm like, well, what do you want to do? And he's like, I want to be a developer. I was like, oh, I'm like, I didn't even know you knew how to code. He's like, I don't. And I was just literally scratching my head. And he's like, I want to learn. I know I'm going to have to take a step back, but this is what I want to do. And so my next question, of course, was like, what? I'm like, have you talked to your wife about this? And he's like, she knows, but she doesn't know I'm having this conversation today. And so I was like, go have the conversation and then come back and we'll figure out, what's what. I was like, but this is like, there's a lot of risk in all of this. You have the keys to the kingdom. It has to be done right. We're going to have to really work together on this. And we did. And I mean, he's still at that organization 10 years later in a
Wouldn't
developer.
you rather that?
Yeah.
Right? You have a good teammate that is a skill and a will, and they want to switch roles, but still be with you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And had the trust. He
And has
just
the
as easily could have.
Feels comfortable
Yeah.
talking about it.
Yeah, just as easily could have gone outside. So it was pretty awesome. I think one of the most rewarding things in all of our careers is when we get to different points where we can give back in some significant ways. And we know that there's something that you've been working on in that capacity. So why don't you tell us a little bit about the scholarship that you're doing?
So we're really excited. Kristen and I, both graduates of ASU, and my daughter graduated, and she's at the law school at ASU, and my son in his second year. So 4 Devils, and other than the sports that we love, we're also just big fans of the school and what they've done. And for me in particular, WP Carey, what they've done to the business school and how I was afforded some great opportunities. When I came out, I really thought the rigor that I had as an undergrad, and I did my MBA there too, but was really good, and it set me up to be able to learn quickly and once I started working, and I appreciated that even then, because I knew there were others that didn't have that rigor or experience that business school put me through. And so we also know it's important to be able to provide opportunities for others in the community to get a quality education and culture, that innovation that our school's all about. And so Kristen and I this year, we set up, it's called the Future Leader Scholarship Fund. And so it's going to be available for scholarships to the WP Carey School. People can reach out to the ASU Foundation. It'll start in the fall, and it'll be a 4-year scholarship. And we're going to continue it indefinitely. So we're super excited that we can do that. People at ASU have been amazing. And so we're looking forward to, they'll make the decisions, but we'll be able to meet the candidates and the people who get the scholarships. And so we're just super excited to be able to provide that for the community, some resources and opportunities for others. So just something we're super passionate about. And it's exciting.
Yeah, absolutely amazing. That's wonderful. And congratulations on that milestone. It's huge.
Yeah, it's exciting to be a part of ASU. I mean, you and I met on the alumni board and council. It's been a lot of fun. There's so many things that ASU does that most people don't know about, with the different scholarship programs and all of that. And they have the Alumni Leadership Institute every year, which is growing all of the time. They just had the Sun Devil 100, which is the top 100 led businesses by Sun Devil alum, which is a pretty cool program. The numbers in that program, like how many people are employed by Sun Devil led companies and how much revenue they generate, and all of it is just, it's phenomenal. And ASU being the largest university in the country, those kinds of things, it's just people don't realize what's happened out here and how it's grown over the last long time since I graduated.
Same here.
Yeah.
But
Are
it's
we gonna
amazing,
date you at this point?
and they
Maybe.
continue to do great work.
Yeah.
Right? They're not satisfied
Yeah.
at any point. Crow himself has been there longer than most school presidents normally are, but he brings the energy like it's his second day on the job.
Yeah.
And then, of course, that's part of culture.
Yeah.
And you see these folks, and when we're there for board meetings, et cetera, you can't fight the energy. It's just amazing how you just get energized every time you're there, what they're doing. And it's
awesome.
really exciting.
Like last night, the Board of Regents put on an event last night at the Sun Devil Stadium in the Santan Board Club with over 200 people there. It was a leadership panel on grit, and it was just amazing to kind of see the energy in the room and the things that the panel talked about. So it's a fun, like I said, fun thing to be a part of.
Absolutely. So stereotypically, you don't usually connect like comics, comedians, and accountants. However, we would be a huge miss if we didn't turn it over to you just for a little bit of CFO humor.
Thank you for encouraging what my wife is embarrassed about. But, no, I was just recently, someone was asking me about inflation. They think because you're in finance that you're up, you know all about everything going on in the world. And so I just said, inflation is so out of control. I said, a picture's only now worth 100 words. CEOs, budgets are so tight, they're playing miniature golf, You got companies like ExxonMobil. Things are so bad over there, they had to let 25 congressmen go. So put my money in Fidelity. I lost 25%, but it's better than my buddy. He went Infidelity. He's down 50%. So anyway, look, I think I manage through humor. And I think it's a great way to move through, to be able to have some humor, humility, and just enjoy people. And so, I use it as, a cornerstone to make introductions and just get to know people. Yeah. And so it's been a big part of my life. And I've done some stand-up from time to time. But, those days are mostly over. Yeah. Busy running car washes.
Yeah. I think it keeps to the transparency topic,
Absolutely.
though, of just we're human.
Yeah.
We're all real. We're all people. And just makes people more approachable if they can see different sides of us, especially sides that aren't so serious too,
Shows some vulnerability, which a lot of people struggle to do.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's nothing more vulnerable than going on a stage and telling a joke and not knowing if it's going to work or not. Right? So, and they don't all work. So.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, we've really enjoyed having you as part of the podcast. Appreciate your time, your energy, your insights. It's been amazing. If people that are listening want to get a hold of you, how can they reach out?
Yeah, they can reach me out on LinkedIn is a great place. I'm active on there, so feel free to reach out. With regards to scholarship, the ASU Foundation can point them in the right direction. That would be great. I love connecting with people. Seems like every couple of weeks I'm having coffee with somebody to get to know them, and I just enjoy, seeing what other people are doing and getting to know other people that, might not be in your bubble of your work or where you live. And so I look forward to getting to know more people. It's great.
Awesome.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah,
absolutely.
thank you.
Thanks, Rick.
Thank you
Thanks,
again.
Ashley.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for tuning in to The Confidence Curve. We hope today's episode left you inspired and ready to embrace your journey confidently. Remember, whether you're leading a team, growing your business, or pursuing personal growth, each step forward builds your curve. If you enjoyed today's conversation, don't forget to subscribe, share, and leave us a review. For more insights and resources, visit us at apexgts.com. Until next time, keep climbing the curve.